He who fights with monsters should be careful not to become one. Friedrich Nietzsche. Picture someone kind, courteous, and principled, the type of person you'd never suspect of being cruel. Now imagine that same individual placed in a setting of absolute power, anonymity, and no oversight. What would happen? We find comfort in believing that evil is far away, limited to villains in stories, psychopaths, or infamous figures of history. But what if that's not true? What if evil is a seed lying dormant within each of us, merely waiting for the right conditions to grow? In this account, you won't hear tales of mythical beasts, but rather of ordinary people. People like you, like me, like our neighbors and friends. People who, when subjected to certain environments, committed acts that defy comprehension. What could cause a good person to turn into something monstrous? Get ready for a profound psychological dive. We'll examine what occurs when power, lack of limits, and environment converge, and what this combination exposes isn't just about them, it's about all of us. The inner shadow. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. From a young age, we're taught to view good and evil as separate realms, each populated by entirely different types of people. That narrative feels safer. But inside ourselves, that division doesn't actually exist. Evil doesn't show itself with horns or glowing red eyes. It lives quietly within, often masked as noble intentions, rationalizations, or blind submission. Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious part of the personality that we reject, hide, and deny. Pretending the shadow doesn't exist doesn't make it disappear. It only makes it more dangerous. And the less aware we are of it, the more exposed we become in situations that challenge our ethics and integrity. The question isn't whether we have a dark side, it's what we do with it. Those who never confront their inner world are prone to projecting that darkness outward, seeing monsters in everyone else, except themselves. And it's precisely at this point that the transformation begins. The moment we refuse to acknowledge our internal darkness, we hand over control to it. The line separating good and evil does not pass through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties, but right through every human heart. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. The Stanford Experiment. Much of the evil in this world is done by people who never made a firm decision to be either good or evil. Hannah Arendt. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set out to study how human behavior could be influenced by environment. The result was a disturbing experiment that would gain global attention. 24 healthy college students with spotless records were selected to take part in a simulated prison inside the basement of Stanford University. The participants were randomly assigned into two roles: guards and prisoners. The prisoners had their identities stripped away and replaced by numbers. They wore plain uniforms and were deprived of anything that reflected their individuality. The guards, on the other hand, wore mirrored sunglasses and authoritative clothing. Their only instruction: maintain order. Without using physical violence, the simulation was meant to last 2 weeks, but was shut down after only 6 days. Within the first 24 hours, the guards, ordinary young men, began exhibiting hostile behavior, humiliating and psychologically punishing the prisoners. Things escalated whenever Zimbardo, who played the role of prison superintendent, was absent. Even though everyone involved knew it was just an experiment, the guards lost themselves in the role, and the prisoners submitted to their condition with startling speed. The experiment uncovered a haunting truth. Under the right circumstances, any average person can cross moral boundaries. And what's most unsettling is the realization that evil often doesn't arise from a deliberate decision. It stems from obedience, from circumstance, and from silence. When we lose our face, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. In the Stanford Experiment, it wasn't just the roles that changed. The individuals themselves transformed, and alarmingly fast. What started as a simulation quickly devolved into a real exercise in dominance. The core of this transformation lies in the process of de-individuation. When someone's name is replaced with a number, when faces are hidden behind reflective glasses, when everyone wears identical uniforms, identities begin to vanish. And with the loss of identity comes dehumanization. The guards no longer saw the prisoners as fellow students or even as people. They became objects. Punishment became easier. Guilt faded. Empathy disappeared. When someone joins a group that normalizes cruelty, they stop acting from their own conscience and begin operating from a collective we. And that we can be merciless. The most unsettling aspect is that all of this unfolded without explicit commands, without coercion. A symbolic setting, a few instructions, and the feeling of being anonymous were all it took to corrode moral boundaries. Down there, in a basement turned into a mock prison, the faces began to fade. And when we lose the face, we lose the reflection of our shared humanity. The system that enables evil, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton. What makes someone capable of inflicting harm on another? Often it's not due to a flaw in their character, but rather the framework around them. A system that permits, encourages, or silently allows abuse to occur. In the Stanford Experiment, Zimbardo didn't instruct the guards to be cruel. But by legitimizing the environment and failing to intervene in the face of injustice, he fostered a space where abusive behavior became expected and eventually seemed normal. The setup may have been fictional, but the behaviors it triggered were disturbingly genuine. The university basement turned into a miniature version of institutionalized tyranny, where evil flourished under the guise of small permissions. The power of the collective unconscious is far greater than we imagine. Carl Jung. Within that collective unconscious, silence becomes complicity. The process of normalizing the absurd occurs gradually. No alarms, no revolts, until morality quietly dissolves. That's how many of humanity's worst atrocities took shape, not by the hands of lone monsters, but through systems that protected perpetrators and erased personal accountability. In such environments, evil isn't a deviation. It becomes part of the mechanism itself. Everyday heroism. The quiet resistance. Heroism is the antidote to evil. Philip Zimbardo. At the height of the experiment's moral collapse, it was Christina Maslach, a young PhD student and Zimbardo's girlfriend at the time, who broke the silence. She was the first and only one to challenge what was happening. Her protest didn't come from a place of power, but from basic human decency. Her look of outrage was what snapped Zimbardo out of his own trance. The project, initially set to last 2 weeks, was terminated on the 6th day. She hadn't been cast as the hero. She simply refused to accept the unacceptable. That's the heart of everyday heroism, simple actions that defy the current, that don't need glory or fanfare. In a system that fosters evil, resistance itself becomes an act of rebellion. Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is. Albert Camus. That refusal may appear as weakness or as strength. While the environment may try to shape us, we also possess the ability to resist and break free from its grasp. When the majority remains silent, a single gesture, a glance, a word, a refusal can stop a whole cycle of cruelty and rescue those trapped within it. The choice to be human. What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you. Carl Jung. Understanding that our surroundings can influence how we act is both unsettling and empowering, because with that awareness comes a powerful tool, consciousness. We are not merely at the mercy of our circumstances. We are also accountable for how we respond to them. The power to choose remains within us, even in the most challenging moments. And that choice reveals the deepest core of what it means to be human. Morality isn't born from the majority. It begins within the individual, the one who, despite external pressures, stays loyal to their own ethical compass. True wisdom is knowing that you know nothing, Socrates. To admit that we are flawed, that we can be swayed, that we carry a shadow, this doesn't diminish our humanity. It deepens it. Denial gives room for chaos. Acceptance opens the path to transformation. Between being swept away by the crowd or standing firm in one's values, there lies a moment of decision. And in that moment, there is the quiet courage to remain truly human. Amid the storm, true strength is not about conquering others, but about mastering oneself. Who are we when no one is watching? That's the question that lingers once all is said and done. When systems collapse, when oversight disappears, when society turns a blind eye, who do we choose to become? The Stanford Experiment wasn't just a study in human behavior, it was a mirror. A disturbing reflection of what we can turn into when we stop looking inward and allow the environment to shape our identity. To reflect on the Lucifer effect is to understand that evil doesn't always come with a monstrous face. Often, it wears the ordinary mask of someone following orders, someone who doesn't question, someone who chooses silence. Between shadow and light, between impulse and awareness, lies a decision. And this decision appears daily, in the quiet choices, in what we do and what we fail to say. We may not control everything around us, but we do control the person we choose to become, and that is the spark of humanity. Let us never forget, even in the deepest darkness, we still hold the power to ignite a light. If this story stirred something inside you, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe our surroundings reveal who we are or shape who we become? Like the video, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the depths of the human mind, morality, and the choices that define who we truly are. And remember, true evil doesn't begin with monsters, but with ordinary people who choose not to look within. Are you ready to light your own flame?